Hello and welcome to Sound and Vision. Again, I'm your host, Ian James, and again, I am joined by the brilliant and beautiful Miss Hope Wade.
Hello.
And today we are joined by a third party of mega movie fan Marlon.
Hey guys.
And for anyone who's keeping up with what's going on, this is episode 10, American Werewolf in London. So, today we've chose to talk about, as I said, American Werewolf in London, which I know special guest Marlon is a big fan of. I'm not sure about Miss Wade. He's looking at me strangely.
I'm a fan.
Are you a big fan?
I'm a big fan, yeah. It's one of my favorite werewolf movies.
It is the werewolf movie.
It is
It is the werewolf movie.
For sure.
Number one.
Yeah.
It has the great combination that I love in movies, horror, comedy.
Yeah. I think it does better than all of them in that sense, because there's a lot of horror comedy that, comes later. We can talk about it later on. So just going back to the origins of American Werewolf in London, apparently the idea came to John Landis when he was 19, and he was working on Kelly's Heroes, which is another one of your favourites.
Yeah, it's a brilliant film.
And I think he was working as like a gopher or a grip or whatever you want to call it. He was just doing odd jobs on the film set. And they were driving through the Yugoslavian countryside, and John Landis witnessed what would be a gypsy funeral. And these gypsies were digging this massive hole where they were putting this body in. They were burying him feet first, covered in garlic, so he wouldn't rise again. I know, I don't make this up, this is the truth. And it fascinated him to the point where he would sort of, when they were in between scenes on set, he was kind of writing notes, and it fascinated him that much, and he kind of conjured up the story of American Werewolf in London, and then just put it to one side and carried on about his film career, and in the meantime delivered Schlock and Kentucky Fried Movie, which he worked on, all these kind of like Jim Abrams type things. The 70s, before John Landis became John Landis, and the first film that he really got big with was National Lampoon's Howling, which made a lot of money, followed by The Blues Brothers, which was a mega flop at the time, but now is obviously well thought of.
Classic.
Yeah, well loved, and absolutely should have been anyway. And on the strength of those two movies, then he was finally granted the kind of budget he needed to make this film that he envisioned when he was 19, which became American Werewolf in London, which I think takes its title from Werewolf of London, the 1935 Universal movie. So yeah, in 1981, he fleshes out this story about two American backpackers that kind of tour Europe during
like we all do when we come to Europe with our backpack, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what happens
Yeah.
in every movie?
Of course, yeah.
Because we only know London and then backpacking.
That's what you do, yeah. You come here and you check out London, and I've always said, like, London is a floating island. That's what England is. England is just London on an island for Americans.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
For most,
Yeah.
America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
It's just London, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah.
Everything was in London. So anyway, yeah, two American backpackers on this European tour. During the English leg of their tour, then they are in Yorkshire, which is a lie because it was actually filmed in Wales. But if we follow the terms of the movie,
Yorkshire? Wait a minute, let me
Yorkshire.
correct you. For Americans know it's Yorkshire.
like it's Leicestershire and Worcestershire and Gloucestershire.
Worcestershire.
The Shire. It's all like Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, and basically Jack and David, two teenage Americans, come to England, are attacked basically as soon as they get to England on the Yorkshire moors by what is later we discover as a werewolf, which kills Jack and leaves David alive to carry on the curse, as it says, which the film winds up sending him to hospital, where he meets an English nurse played by Jenny Agutter, who's one of our faves. And then the kind of film goes from there, basically. But more the point to make about it is that in terms of werewolf movies, I always think that American Werewolf is what Halloween is to the slasher franchise. Do you know what I mean? It's that big one that if we ever talk about werewolf movies, we'll always end up talking about American Werewolf.
It's one that just all comes together, and from the start to the finish,
Yeah.
works, connects.
Yeah.
It's just a masterpiece.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It's one of my favourites. And like Marlon says, I think it's a perfect movie.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of werewolf cinema before then, like as mentioned, Werewolf in London 1935 is the first werewolf movie then. It was kind of acknowledged werewolf movie. But 1941's The Wolfman, which is the one that everyone probably remembers more so, is when everything sort of got perfected in what the rules were then. That, you know, you were bitten by a wolf and you carry on the curse, and the whole, you know, dying by, even though he kind of gets killed by a silver cane in that, if I remember correctly, but the silver bullet thing, all the kind of myths of the werewolf mythology is there in the Wolfman. And then obviously Universal made sequels to that, and then hammered out a go with Curse of the Werewolf, which is one of Oliver Reed, which I really like.
Yeah, film that is. Real good film.
And then there's just not that many of them. This is real funny because after that, there's the ones made in Spain. Pornacci, who I really like, the Spanish Wolfman, or Vladimir Dansky is known in the movies. There's a section of his low budget kind of things, which is all based on the Wolfman. And other than that, there's Werewolf on Wheels, which is a strange hybrid biker movie, which is it's a fun movie. It's pretty strange. Tygon did Legend of the Werewolf with Peter Cushing. So these kind of things in the mid-70s, and there's The Beast Must Die. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head now. And the Werewolf of Washington, which is the political werewolf movie with Dean Stockwell, which is just strange.
Yeah.
So basically, during the mid-70s, there's a handful of these movies with gimmicks. And none of them are particularly great, and though some of them are fun. But the werewolf thing was just dead and buried. Nobody could really do it, because unfortunately, the calling card of a werewolf movie I always thought was the transformation sequence. And at that point, special effects hadn't quite caught up with the ideas of these movies, so it was always that kind of stop-go framing where they would sort of, you know, shoot them for 2 seconds, put some air on, shoot them for 2 seconds, put some air on, and, you know, it looked pretty tacky, but, you know, it's kind of fun. So in 1981, with American Werewolf in London, we really got to highlight Rick Baker's, the special effects and the werewolf transformation especially.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is the best one.
Today, one of the most iconic cinematic moments of film.
Yeah. And especially for horror movies, for sure. I think it's the scene.
Definitely.
I mean, he won Best Makeup at the 81 Oscars, and it was the first time that award was ever given. So they almost created the award to give him, and he was the first winner of that, Rick Baker. He was long-term friends with John Landis and worked with him on previous movies anyway. But so the myth goes that Rob Bottin, who's, you know, special effects guru from too many things to mention. The Thing, I should say, most iconically, works on that really great. But he also worked on The Howling, and he also played Blake in The Fog. Which he worked on. And apparently, The Howling was going into production before American Werewolf in London. Because this is the key thing. Because anyone who talks about American Werewolf in London, you always get drawn into The Howling. So we're going to have this big debate about 1981 was the best werewolf movie. Because basically, 1981, American Werewolf and The Howling both got released, both made a ton of money. And then it opened the doors a little for werewolf movies. We had another one called Wolfen. It plays on the werewolf myth, but not so much of a werewolf movie. Company of Wolves a few years later, which is a good one. But that plays more on fairy tales and that gothic literature kind of stuff. But basically, Rob Bottin was working on The Howling, and he was having these back and forth phone calls with Rick Baker about it, you know, because they were friends and they were both working in special effects and they were both young. And he was like, well, how would you kind of, you know, would I do this and how would I do that? And Rick Baker heard Rob Bottin mention how we would do this extended snake thing. And it really fascinated him. Well, I can't remember the complete story of this now. I'm gutted I can't, because we're going into it. But basically, he stole Rob Bottin's idea for the extended snake.
A little scandal
and
there.
Yeah, and American Werewolf managed to get into production first. So apparently, I think it's Joe Dante who directed The Howling, like, bollocked Rob Bottin. He said, what the hell did you tell him all that?
Yeah.
And that's the funny myth, because Rick Baker went on to win the Oscar, but it was Rob Bottin's idea originally. But hey ho, that's history. So yeah, that's a bit of interesting piece of trivia. Going back to John Landis though, just for a second, before we have a bigger discussion on kind of enjoyment of the movie, just fill in some more facts. Originally, when this went into production, then it was made as a horror comedy. Because people were expecting comedy from John Landis. It was like, oh, these guys did Blues Brothers. It's going to be a comedy. And I think a lot of people were surprised at the horror element of it. But as you two pointed out already, you know, this is, for me, and I'll say that now, is the greatest horror comedy ever made. Because since then we've had, you know, the Gremlins a little bit later had played on the kind of theme of being scary and funny. Scream in the 90s, and then Shaun of the Dead, and some more, and there's a lot of them now. A lot of them.
Yeah, there's loads.
Yeah, you know, we like Zombieland, is that the whole zombie thing. But this is the first fully formed one where it generally is funny, and also very scary. Just before we go back to a few more bits and pieces about it, I just wanted to remember it. Could you remember the first time you seen it, Hope?
No, I was probably 10,
Do
12.
you remember your
around
first
then.
experience, or was it just kind of, oh, I remember watching it, but
No, I remember watching it. I more so watched it, I think, as I got older. But yeah, I probably caught it on TV because they played all of the horror movies on TV back
Yeah.
in the day. So I probably caught it and I was like, oh, that's funny, you know. But I wasn't a huge werewolf lover. Like some people, like I like vampires more than I do werewolves.
It's your favorite subgenre of horror is vampires.
Yeah, which I'm shocked that he got a burial with garlic in from a gypsy.
But
like,
that inspired a werewolf story.
yeah, like that just fascinates me. Like you would think he would do a Dracula film from that. Instead he gets a werewolf.
I'm kind of glad he did do a werewolf one,
Yeah.
just because there isn't any.
But how
And
did that even inspire
They
him?
always do like base the gypsy curse on the Wolfman a bit, though, don't they?
yeah,
So,
and
Do
is
they?
there is the gypsy thing in the Wolfman, isn't there? Where Bela Lugosi plays the gypsy guy who kind of tells him of his fate
yeah.
and stuff. So
Yeah, I get it.
maybe that was what kind of drew
what he was thinking.
to his mind, Landis's mind when he wrote it.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first time watching it, Marlon?
Yeah, it was about 1984 on Betamax.
Jesus, you were really young as well.
Yeah,
You'd be like 5 or something.
Four. Yeah.
Jesus, you remember that?
Yeah, I
Wow.
had that on Betamax with Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, and Dracula.
Hammer Dracula.
Four first films I can remember watching.
Wow. And then obviously, I mean, to see a film at that age and still remember it, it means it must have really left a mark on you.
Yeah, definitely.
But I know. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, I watched it religiously. It was that good.
Mm-hmm.
And being a young boy,
Impressionable horror fan.
Very-
Yeah.
And then
Very
Jenny
impression.
being,
And then
eye candy there.
Jenny
for-
Agutter and a certain Cher scene.
With that,
Who needed
It just-
scrambled porn, right?
It just hooks you from
Yeah.
from the moment it comes on. It just hooks you. The scene where they're going into the pub and then on from it's just everything. What
You can't say enough good things about it, can you?
what more do you need?
No, absolutely. I take.
And lots of good
totally
characters.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, very good characters.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites from the young ones.
Rick Mail. Yeah, he does. He
Yeah.
turns up as a chess player in
Yeah.
the Stored
Yeah.
Lamb pub at the beginning. That's right,
Yeah.
he does. Yeah. I mean, taking it right back again to the movie. As pointed out, the cast is very good. David Norton plays the lead, which is. I mean, you've discussed this as well. It's quite sad that you don't really see him in anything else. Not really. I mean, a handful of films at that time. But apparently, he was spotted in a Pepsi commercial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Landis recognised him from Pepsi, which is funny because, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never really checked this, but apparently he had a few pop singles as well. So he was
Did he?
apparently
Oh,
in
Lord.
America.
They
so,
all do. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how he got cast.
Now I gotta look it up and
yeah.
listen to him.
Yeah, definitely.
Just want to hear him howling into a microphone.
Obviously, he didn't make a career out of that one, so
No,
I'm
but-
not too sure about it.
But it's kind of sad because he's good in this, and
Yeah.
it didn't really lead to much more,
He
which
plays
is
the part
sad.
really well.
Yeah, and of interest, just a bit of trivia for you. Apparently, of all the scenes that he films in this movie, 40% of the scenes he's naked. So 40% of this movie he plays naked. And another interesting bit of trivia is in the story, he is set up as Jewish. So John Landis said, "Whatever you do," because he wasn't circumcised. He said,
Yeah.
"Please don't
Oh,
get
the
your
best joke ever with the nurse.
Yeah, but don't ever put your penis in shot, basically, because you're not circumcised." They were bending over backwards to kind of cover him in that area, which they do a fairly good job. I
Yeah.
probably haven't examined it as well as someone like Hope to check.
No,
That- that's a job
I
for
did,
you, Hope, I
because
think,
he was
that one.
always like having his legs like together.
Yeah.
Tucked. It was tucked. So,
It's Buffalo Bill.
yeah, we never got a chance to see it, unfortunately. But yeah, I checked. I checked.
That would have been the real beast of the movie. So
He'd be
yeah.
happy to hear that.
yeah, I'm not saying nothing because we didn't see it. Griffin Dunn plays comedy relief, I suppose, and also plays the friend who's killed at the beginning of the movie. Then he kind of reappears to tell him of his fate, filling that part of the movie out. He's very good in this. And Griffin Dunn's, I always kind of enjoyed him in any film anyway, but even though he has everything else is kind of minor parts, except for After Hours for Scorsese, which is great. Jenny Agutter is obviously the English Rose.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, like a English natural beauty.
Isn't
And
she in Buck Rogers or something? Or what was
Logan's Run.
Logan's Run. They're all the fucking same. They're,
Oh,
they're all spacey.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was probably the the English pin-up back in those days.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, for a certain fact that I know a lot of people that would, English people would totally agree with that. And as Hope mentioned, was in Logan's Run, but it was in like The Eagle Has Landed, Walkabout for Nicholas Roeg, so a whole host of films before this, Equus as well, which I think she may have won an award for. So she was already quite established and well known. She was a child actress, probably most famously for The Railway Children. So she came into this with a bit of a caliber, and then there's John Woodvine, who plays the Doctor, who's kind of investigating this whole mystery of whether David Kessler, the main character, was killed by a werewolf or not. And as Hope said, the minor parts and then are filled out by Brian Glover, ex-wrestler, who's great here.
Yeah,
who me and Marlon still quote all the time.
Yeah.
He's fantastic during the opening scenes of the movie. Rick May, obviously from The Young Ones, playing chess player in the background, and also the guy who plays Gerald, the guy in the Tottenham subway station, played is it Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
That's him in the costume, which I didn't realise until quite recently, actually. I was quite shocked by that. I was like, yeah, I can assure you this is not funny or whatever it is. And I forget the whole Tottenham Court Road station bit, but which is one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. The film itself was completely shot in order as well. It was one of the rare times where a whole film is shot in sequence then, which is not often happens. So they went straight from the Moor scene at the beginning through to the hospital to the whole Piccadilly thing at the end, all the chaos and carnage at the end scene. So it was shot completely in sequence. And the only thing they shot previous to the movie was the See You Next Wednesday segment, which is the porno movie that's playing, which I'm sure John Landis had fun filming. And the title of that, See You Next Wednesday, which is for anyone who knows John Landis, and is an ongoing joke in all John Landis's movies, that See You Next Wednesday will feature somewhere on a billboard in the background or on a poster, or somebody will mention it. It's the John Landis in joke. It will be in every one of his movies. And apparently that comes from a line of dialogue in 2001 Space Odyssey, where an astronaut says to his family, I'll see you next Wednesday. And for some reason that's stuck in John Landis's head. And he's like, I'm going to use that for my forever. Yeah, and he's still using it now. John Landis is also on record as saying this is his favourite of all the movies that he made. It's the most perfect movie that he made. Which is something considering, he shot the Blues Brothers and Trading Places and Coming to America. Yeah, did the Three Amigos and Spies Like Us. So lots of fun 80s comedy movies. This is only kind of, although there's Innocent Blood, which was a vampire movie. So John Landis did get to make his vampire movie, which is a very good one. Kind of had fun with that. More tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, like this one. So yeah, this is kind of John Landis' greatest contribution to horror movies, I guess. And, I mean, again, we can just point out reasons why it's so good, and which we'll do now. It's just that no other werewolf movie ever since this, in 1981 this was made. It was made on a 5.8 million budget and turned over 62 million, which is how popular it is, isn't it? And it remains a well-loved movie with a really strong cult following, which is still has to this day, and certainly with who's in the room with me now absolutely loved the movie. But why, since 1981, is no one made as good werewolf movie as this?
Didn't they do a crappy follow-up, American Werewolf in Paris or something?
They did.
They did. I was hoping that one was going to stay in the afterburners.
I think we all were. So please, nobody. It's not like we should put a swear jar in the room that anyone who mentions that film should stick a pound in, because it's just awful. But I suppose we have to talk about it. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, they came out somewhere in the 90s, I think.
In the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it, really.
I only remember watching it once, and I don't remember anything about it.
There is no links to this movie other than the main... I can't remember the actress in it. Is it Julie Delpy? I can't remember the French actress. Is she meant to be... Is she the werewolf in that one?
Yeah, she's David Kessler's
daughter. So yeah, because they obviously the shower scene, which we mentioned from the original movie, apparently.
Oh, and she had a baby.
Yeah, in terms of I want to make a sequel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're meant to believe, and I think that's the loose connection here. But like you guys, I barely remember it except for a ton of awful CGI. With what?
I think that's one thing that they've spoiled the werewolf movies, the CGI. Everything just happens too quick and too
I think that was
cartoony.
And it was certainly a shortcut, wasn't it, to making the transformation sequence. It was like by the 90s, physical effects were dying out anyway, and it was so much cheaper to do them digitally on a computer. And unfortunately, American Werewolf in Paris was released around that time when that was the in thing to do, which James Cameron had kind of revolutionised with The Abyss and Terminator 2. It was like, we can do things on computers now. And unfortunately, as all you guys who listen to this regularly know, I absolutely hate CGI. So it's like the death of practical effects, and unfortunately for me, the death of a lot of enjoyment in the movies that I watch.
Oh, but it takes skill.
Yeah.
Didn't
You keep-
someone argue about that recently?
Yeah. It's
I mean, yeah, it takes skill, but so
yeah,
does.
not the same amount of work goes into it, which is interesting actually. 'Cause Marlon's here, and your niece works in. She's doing makeup and effects, isn't she?
She used to, yeah.
She stopped now.
She hasn't done it for a while.
Oh
but
right,
she
yeah,
used
because
to.
she's very good. I remember
Yeah.
seeing some of her stuff. It's really good, and it's nice to see people still doing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Makeup and
Yeah,
effects.
she had a real good talent for it.
Yeah, so tell her we need more of those in the industry.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of werewolf movies, as mentioned, American Werewolf in Paris, which is terrible, and then Bad Moon, which I do like.
Yeah,
By
Bad
Eric Red.
Moon's enjoyable. I like
Yeah,
that film,
it's
yeah.
a good one. Again, you got the CGI chain, unfortunately, but still a good solid story and a good wolf when it turns out.
Yeah.
The actual wolf is there. It's just the transformation
Yeah,
sequence.
oh, yeah, definitely.
And then Ginger Snaps, I suppose, is the most recent one, which I really like. I know he likes,
I like
and I know she doesn't.
It's okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the whole rave about it, but it's okay.
I think I personally really like
I
it.
like Ginger Snaps as well.
You know what's funny is I like the cheesy third one better than all of them, which probably is like the least favorite of them all.
When it goes back to the olden days.
Yeah, mhm.
Yeah, I like.
Didn't
all
see
three
that
of
one, I
them,
have to be
All
honest.
three of them are watchable, definitely. The first one's the best by a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was really good. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess it was a different take on it.
I think that's the point, because I think with werewolf movies in general, I've also missed it, which I got a chance to mention now actually. I was a teenage werewolf with Marlon Landis in the 50s American International Pictures movie, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, that was the truest, or the with that movie then, it was almost like they made a chance to have a movie making, because I mean, I'm tripping over my words now, but what I'm trying to say is that I was a teenage werewolf, they were making a story about a teenage guy whose body is going through changes. So it almost plays on the whole puberty thing, which I always thought, even though it was done in trashy terms for the drive-in, and I know they don't explore it completely the way I'm selling it, I'm making it sound like it's more highbrow than it is. It's not, but the idea is really interesting, and I think that's what Ginger Snaps does,
Yeah.
which is clever. That it plays on the part of that a woman's body will go through changes as she hits, teenagers. So it plays on those themes, and I think that, for me personally, that was the thing that I was like, oh, that's very clever. For teenage snaps, Ginger Snaps making a teenage.
Teenage Snaps.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? That would have been a hell of a movie, by the
Yeah.
way.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's the film that commits Teeth. About Teenage Snaps.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think in terms of the only decent werewolf movie for me after American Werewolf, since American Werewolf, then is Ginger Snaps for me. So I was mentioning that. Going back though, again, to American Werewolf in London, which is what we're supposed to be talking about before I strayed off. In terms of that movie being released in the same year as The Howling, I mean, we didn't ask you, Hope, what's your opinion on these two? Which is the better movie then? Although they're both very good and very different.
They're both different.
Yeah.
I think American Werewolf would probably be my favorite, just because it has the humor in it.
Although there
with
is
it.
the humor in The Howling. too.
Yeah, I like the Howling. I really like that one, but it's just a little bit more darker, maybe.
Yeah, but this you say that, and the conversations I've had with people about The Howling, they'll always defend it by saying, "Oh, The Howling is I don't like both movies, but The Howling's a bit darker, isn't it? It's a bit nastier." And
I like
I haven't really thought that myself.
I like the costume in the Howling.
You like the wolf on there's a proper word for this, but the wolf on two legs, basically.
Yeah, but I like the transformation better in American Werewolf, because that's just really good. That the idea that he stole for the Howling. You know?
the transformation. Let's just point this out a second. The transformation, yeah, he's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
But
transformation.
if you've seen the wolf in American Werewolf and then seen the wolf in Howling, I'd definitely rather be chased through the streets by the wolf in Howling.
On 2 feet.
Yeah, the wolf in American Werewolf, he does.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a monster in American Werewolf, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a real monster.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we heard the howl earlier on in the show. Completely frightening. It
Yeah.
works. And again, when we was kids, I'll speak for me and Marlon, who watched this film together, probably more than any other film we've ever watched together. We were fascinated by the first quarter of an hour, weren't we? With Jack and David on the moors and the whole interplay between the two of them, the humour between the two of them. But certainly, that whole build-up of there's something out there, the hound on the moors kind of thing, and the whole screeching of the howl, and it was very frightening.
Yeah.
Well, just you can just put yourself on those moors, and then it's just pitch black all around you. Bit of rain, and you hear a howl like that.
Yeah, because it's ear split at the air wall. I don't know where the hell he got that sound from, but I mean, fair play to them.
Definitely
Yeah.
wasn't Heathcliff anyway.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't Heathcliff.
Did you read anything like how he got the
No, that's one
from
thing.
it?
No, I'm still. I need to ask. Next time John comes over for a meal, we'll put it.
You need to ask
We'll
him.
put it to him. So where the hell did you get that hell from? But it's such a good sequence, and it's going to lead me to say something else, which it's totally skipped my mind now, which is really bad of me.
Yeah, and what about this? There wasn't any music in it, though. There's no. Was there a
No,
score?
yeah,
to
thank
it?
you.
I can't remember.
You've almost read my mind, Hope. This is a
Of
weird
course,
thing.
I always read his
Yeah,
mind.
Hope's in my head constantly, and
Always.
you've worked your magic again now. Yeah, the score is major here. The score that is a score. Then is I'm always trying to define the difference between a musical score and a
Yeah.
soundtrack. And the score is done by Alma Bernstein,
Okay.
who worked on The Great Escape and Magnificent Seven, many old movies. One of the famous composers. So he did the basic score here, which is all the classical pieces that you hear and you play in the movie. But the point I wanted to make, in which you've reminded me, is that John Landis, again, the in-jokery of John Landis, and that he wanted to make this movie, and that every song in it would have Moon in the title. So we get
Blue Moon.
at the beginning with Bobby Vinton,
Yeah.
and then we get the cover version over the end credits by the March Owls, which is we'll get to the end in a second. It's actually reminded me of something else. And then through the course of the movie, I think we hear Sam Cooke's Blue Moon as well. So there's 3 versions of the same song by different artists. It's very clever.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to use the Elvis Presley version, but copyright held out on that one. And the other song that he kind of didn't get his hands on was... There was one by Bob Dylan as well, which had Moon in the title, which he couldn't go off. And then there's Moon Dance by Van Morrison, when they're having the shower scene. And Moon Shadow was the one he wanted by Cat Stevens. And he wanted that one in the transformation sequence. But again, Cat Stevens is always a record label where any of that. They didn't want their song associated. I think he was into his religious phase at that point as well. So he was like, oh, I'm going to feature my song in a really violent movie, or considered a violent movie at the time. So that never happened. But yeah, so if you've never noticed, but I'm pretty sure you would have noticed if you're a fan of this, there's a lot of Moon songs in here, which is quite clever and quite funny.
Yeah.
Almost like a little hidden Easter egg for...
Yeah, for the ones who don't realise, they sit there and go, oh, everybody thought of that. Yeah, there is. So yeah, Moon songs scattered throughout the whole thing, which is a great in-joke. Also, Frank Oz is in here, which he's also been trading places, so... There's the John Landis connection anyway. He plays the kind of guy, who's dropping stuff all over the hospital, and he's like, Mr. Kessler. Yeah, him. Which obviously, Frank Oz, the voice of Kermit and Miss Piggy and many other people, which is funny as well, because there's a sequence later in the movie where David's watching the TV, or if I remember correctly, I should remember, and the Muppets are playing on the telly, and that's again a little in-joke, like Frank Oz actually in this movie. And one of the jokes I do like as a Brit, because again, the cultural thing is another big part of this movie. Step away from the werewolf thing for a second. Is the cultural angle of Americans living in England, which I'm not sure what Hope feels about this. But there's a scene where like David Kessler is left in her flat, Nurse Price's flat then, while he's kind of coming to terms with, am I a werewolf, am I not a werewolf, because he's been told by his recurring visions of his dead friend Griffin Dunn that when the next full moon you will become a werewolf. So a section of the movie is filled in with incredible dream sequences that David has, and frightening dream sequences.
Yeah.
The scene in the wood where he kind of, there's the scene where he comically grabs the deer and kills it, but there's the scene where he's laid out on a bed and she walks over to him and then his eyes open up and he's like a zombie. And apparently David Norton, who plays David, said that it was the hardest scene in the whole film to film for him. He said because he had to wear those contact lenses, which he said really played his eyes up. And he really, I know, it seems really funny. She think, really, after all the other stuff he did, you were in the cage with the real wolves and stuff, which is the famous scene in the zoo, which apparently he told John Landis, we'll do this in one take. I ain't getting back in there with the wolves. Okay, which, yeah, fair play to him. Because that was amazing when I used to watch it. Yeah, Christ, you're in there with real wolves, naked, with your bangers and mash hanging out. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So yeah, fair play to him for doing that. But yeah, just going back on the whole culture thing for a second. There's a scene where he's in Nurse Price's flat and it's going to be a full moon tonight, and is it all real? Is it not real? Is it just in his head, or is he going to become a werewolf? And he turns the TV on, and it's 1981 when it was made. And there's literally 3 stations, which Marlon will know damn well that when we were growing up, luckily we had 4 by that point, but we only had 4 stations. There was pre-Sky and all that. And there's quite a funny sequence where he flicks through like the channels, and literally there's the darts on BBC Two, and there's some expose on OTV. It's like an advert of an actress kind of, like, if I remember correctly, and she's like, read my story in the magazine this week kind of thing. And it's just like, that is the English way, that there's these 4 channels and they're all pretty dull.
Oh, yeah, it's the same in the States. So, yeah.
It can't be that bad.
Oh,
Because
no.
there is a scene later in the movie where you see him as a kid in America.
Yeah.
And, with his family, don't you? Which I've got to mention this scene. I'm glad we're mentioning this scene now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because the first time I ever seen this movie, right, I seen it on, I think, because I haven't mentioned it the first time. First seen it on Movie Drum, I think it was. I remember correctly. No, it wasn't. First time I ever seen it, my dad showed it me. My dad taped it, there you go. Taped it off TV. And of course I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so that was what I was familiar with. This version that you taped off BBC One or something, which I watched many a time from about the age of 8. I wasn't quite as young as you, and probably near your. I was young, but nowhere near as young as Marlon. I was probably 8 or 9 or something when I first seen it. 8 maybe. And I'd seen this version. Yeah, seen this version my dad had taped, and loved it. Yeah, it was great, fantastic. And then the tape chewed up or got thrown out or taped over or something. Probably Emmerdale Farm or something got taped on it. So the next time it came on, it was like, oh, it's on. There was a show on BBC Two which I absolutely adored called Movie Drone. Again, Marlon probably remembers this one.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, which is a BBC Two show that used to be on every Sunday night, and it would show cult movies. And because it was on BBC Two, they were uncut. Because BBC Two and Channel 4 were the only 2 stations that would play uncut movies, weren't they?
Movies,
Yeah.
Nothing worse than watching a movie, and
Especially on ITV.
Yeah. That used to drive me up the wall. That
Yeah. Yeah, but they used to strip out all the language. And not only did they strip out the language, they would dub it with a voice.
Oh.
There's a scene in Scarface where it's like, how'd you get the scar, Tony? How'd you get that eating pussy? And even something like that would be like, how'd you get the scar, Tony? Eating pineapple?
Yeah.
And the voice would just completely drop. But it was just like, and then there was the Bill Paxton one, was there in Aliens, where it was like, oh, he thinks he saw an alien. And whoopee fucking do. Turns up on TV, it's whoopee for her. And, yeah, it doesn't
They still do that now with The Sopranos. Yeah, with The Sopranos, they do it. And when they play it on like a normal cable station, where before it's always on HBO, which is a paid, you have to pay, so they don't care if your kids watch it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But when it's just on normal every day, it's like this. Because there's a scene where
they dub it.
Oh yeah, because they said something about called him a motherfucker, but he's like, you bat sucker or something. So it was just so bad.
Didn't somebody call it melon farmer or something once on us? Was it Diehard or something?
Yeah,
Whoopee Kaye melon farmer or something. I forget.
But
anyway.
used to turn up all the time in the old BBC One movies.
Yeah, the dub or the cut, wasn't it?
You used to just have to not watch them when they come on there.
Yeah, because you weren't seeing the version you needed to be. It'll only upset you if you watch those versions.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, once I finally did watch American Werewolf in London, again after the first time in a couple of years since I taped it, it showed up on Movie Drome on BBC Two, which was the premium show for me. It was part of my movie education completely. It was the first time I ever seen Big Wednesday, the Terminator, tons of movies, and again uncut. So BBC Two, American Werewolf is part of this season. It would basically be a season of 10 films, then it'd go away for a year, and then it'd come back again with 10 more films or whatever they used to show. And they showed American Werewolf in London uncut, but I wasn't aware of this as like a 10-year-old. And I didn't realise when I watched it this time that they kept that whole Nazi werewolf scene, the home invasion scene, which all you fans will know, where David's in his house, obviously a Jewish family and stuff, which is, the point with the Nazis and stuff. And he's kind of there with his family, doing their thing, their everyday thing in America. And then there's a knock on the door, and then the door opens up, and all these Nazi zombies come in and absolutely obliterate his family.
It's a brutal scene.
Yeah, they cut, and they eventually, they shoot his little sister, shoot his mum and dad, and they
his brother as well.
Yeah, and then they cut his throat, don't they? And there's all this high-pitched squealing and machine guns, and I remember first seeing that through the Movie Drome when I was 10, and I was absolutely shocked to silence. I was just like, really? The hell was that in the version that I seen years ago? I've never seen that. That was cut out. The moment my dad had on tape when I first seen it, that wasn't in there.
Yeah.
So that was a real opener for me. I was like, Jesus, that's pretty full on.
Yeah.
That was a nasty sequence.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? For something that was kind of, it's, I'm not saying it's a funny comedy movie, but for something that's fairly light, it was quite a full on, and
it was almost the coming for him to being the werewolf, because it was the last dream sequence, and it was like the violin test.
Yeah, it's like they were kind of slowly building it. It does feel like that, yeah.
And then obviously with him coming out the window and stabbing.
Yeah, the dream within a dream, which is very clever sequence again with Jenny Agutter, which is very similar to a scene in an old movie called Dead of Night 1945, another British movie, which I'm not sure John Landis seen that or not, but it's very similar to that. The dream within a dream kind of thing. And then it was kind of, again, not spoofed, but ripped off, though, I should say, in Razorback. I don't know if you remember. There's a scene in Razorback where he wakes up from a dream and it's a dream within a dream. So, obviously, influential scene. And plus you got the old, coming slightly away from that, but you got the old mirror one as well, haven't you? Where Jack walks into the bathroom and flips the mirror, which is a classic horror cliche number.
And then he's right there behind
cliche
him.
number 28. You flip the mirror in the bathroom and, he's behind you.
I know, and it sucks when you watch a movie now and you don't see that in the movie, because I think we were watching something not too long ago and like she kept opening the mirror
and we were
and
waiting
putting
for
it
it,
back.
weren't we?
Yeah, and I was waiting and I'm like, is something going to be in there? Do you remember she kept getting the meds or something?
Yeah.
Or they'll flip the mirror so it goes back and there's nothing in there. They'll go down to wash their face. And it's there.
Yeah.
Cheap jump scare, but it's been used a million times. And I'm not saying American Werewolf was the first, but it's the first one it's kind of stood out to me. Again, following on from what we're talking about there, Griffin Dunne is the whole kind of returning zombie, which I've mentioned, obviously telling him what's going to happen to him. It comes back in constant states of decay. He's got worse as the film goes on, which is another clever little device, which I really like.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially the first time he comes to see him in the hospital to tell him, and he completely thinks it's a dream. And I don't know if you everyone will probably remember actually, but where he's eating the toast and he's got that flapping bit of skin on his neck, hasn't he? Which they were going to cut out after. They said, it's so distracting for an audience, and then after they realised they got so many laughs in the editing room, they was like, no, we'll keep that. Actually, that works. People are laughing at this little bit of skin that flaps on his neck, which is really irritating. I remember watching it with my sister and she wanted to cut it off. The skin, I mean.
Yeah. I hope so.
Well, yeah. Because his character wasn't circumcised. But later in the movie, when he finally reaches his final state of decomposing, then we should say, he's in the cinema, and it's almost like he's a puppet by this point, because there's nothing else they can do with him other than portray him as a hand puppet, which is what he becomes. And the puppet is actually controlled by Griffin Dunne, so he's kind of underneath the seat doing it. He's actually puppeteering himself, then, for the final, which is a little bit of trivia for you, which is quite funny. And at that point in the cinema at the end where they're watching the See You Next Wednesday porno movie, which the porno movie is actually quite funny. I don't think I should have been concentrating on that, but for some reason when I was 10 that distracted me. But he's kind of, David is surrounded then by the victims of the movie, isn't he? He's killed during the course of the movie, and they're all like, you must kill yourself. You must end the curse, and it. And of these victims, because I haven't mentioned this, there's 3 tramps that he kills in a junkyard a couple of scenes before, which is a great sequence. Well, it's still a good sequence, but apparently, as I was telling Marlon just before we came on, there was a sequence, which I've only just realised, there was a sequence filmed where he actually showed the tramps dying, and that is out there somewhere still, so which has got to be the holy grail of film footage now I've heard that. Because I'm absolutely gutted now that I don't get to see how the tramps died, because if anyone remembers, they're kind of sat in the graveyard near the howling, and they're like, what the hell is that? That's not Winston, which is someone's dog or something. And then the scene kind of cuts away, and eventually we see him in the cinema all cut up and dead. No, you don't see him.
But it's not on
the
any
deleted
discs,
scenes or anything.
No,
But apparently John Landis says that was filmed, and then he stripped it out because it was too violent for some people, and it was distracting them and all the rest of it. So I'll take it out.
That was too violent, and not the other scene with the Nazis and the.
No, that was okay. So a load of Nazi zombies obliterating an American middle class family. Yeah, absolutely, that was fine. That bit, that was funny. So no, the Trump stuff is out there somewhere. But I also want to mention as well, when they were remastering this movie for one of its many anniversary releases, which that is a had, John Landis overseen the whole thing for the first time in years, and he said that they were watching Jack's death at the beginning when they were filming it, and he couldn't believe how bad it was. He was like, shit, did I shoot that? He said, that's quite nasty, isn't it? It's a lot more gory. He hadn't seen it in years before they did this. So he was like, Jesus, that's a lot more gory than I remember we shot it. I think it surprised them, apparently. So
it's not a quick death, is it? It's quite
no.
as well.
Yeah. It takes him a while. It doesn't just kind of bite when he dies. He's kind of ripping at him for ages, isn't it? And you can hear Griffin Dunne screaming and stuff.
Rolling around and you can see the wolf on top of it.
Yeah, and there's bits of blood spitting here and there. And
it is.
Great stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Great stuff for a horror fan. But so even Landis was quite shocked at how violent that sequence was, which, so maybe the Trump sequence would have been a little bit too much. Obviously I still want to see it. The only complaint, because it's all we've given this film such high praise, which I cannot not give it high praise, and I would easily put it.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and it would easily sit in my sort of 10 favourite horror films easily.
Yeah,
and it probably always will till the day they put me in the ground, feet feet first, covered in garlic.
I don't want to be buried next to you. No, I like garlic.
Oh, well, I'm going alone. Thanks, Hope. That's
No,
that's
you're
love.
You're lucky I like garlic.
Oh, there you go. That's okay. I'm not going to be alone. Yeah, the only complaint I sort of try and find the negative in it. It's really difficult to find the negative. But the only kind of complaint I would slightly have with it, which I know I've read a few other people have said this, it's just the endings almost seem slightly rushed. How do you feel about that, Marlon? Have I upset you with that comment?
No, and just
As he stumbles for words.
It is, yeah, it could be because everybody's expecting a bit of a wolf-human battle at the end.
Well, just
some. But just
because basically, he escapes from Piccadilly, he trashes the whole of London, which is great. Lots of stunt work going on there as well. And apparently, as we're talking about that, John Landis had all this kind of extras and stuff. Not just extras, but like natural people from the streets, and not just paid extras. We're all gathered around the cinema, and there was people going, "Oh, there's an animal in there," because at the end scene they're all outside going, "Oh, there's an animal in the cinema." And apparently, some of the people who didn't know what the hell was going on thought it was like I don't know why, but they thought it was a news team. So they were screaming like, "Oh my god, there's an animal in the cinema in London," thinking that there was a wild animal in there. And Landis, it worked because people's reactions obviously are a lot better than when you're trying to get someone to act. So that was kept in. Of interest. But yeah, he comes out, trashes Piccadilly basically, and then Jenny Agutter gets there at the end, and obviously she's in love with him at this point, and he gets he runs scared as this wolf is into an alleyway, and then the army turn up and we'll skip the whole silver bullet bit, which is, I remember being, when I was young, I was like a ardent old horror, it has to be done for silver bullet, you can't do it any other way. Well, John Landis clearly doesn't care about that, which is fair enough because it's his movie. Yeah, basically the wolf is cornered in an alley. The army, as far as I remember, turn up. And just before they kind of execute it, then Jenny Agutter tries to make contact with it. Then she's trying to talk it around or whatever. And there's this little kind of sad, poignant moment where she kind of looks at them. And the wolf looks sad for a second. And it's almost like Dee Wallace at the end of the howling where she's crying, which is just bizarre. And yeah, she's like, David, and he kind of recognises her for a second, and then he goes to like bite her. He's like, natural instinct, and then the army blow it away, and Marshall's Blue Moon kicks in. And that's the end of the movie. It's just so sudden. It's like boom, boom, bang, boosh, done, gone. Yeah, and it's like, okay, we shot him.
Yeah,
I can see where there is a few, but when he's back to the alleyway, the army's there, and as soon as it was going to go for it, the army were going to shoot it. So there wasn't really any other
ending for it.
Could have been like a up-to-date werewolf movie where it'd be jumping from wall to wall and stuff
like something from a Marvel movie. Yeah,
no. I like the ending. I know it just stops there. He's like down and everybody's.
I think when you say it like that, you do just think, well, it's the natural ending. Really, they shot it. Big deal. Let's move on.
Yeah.
That is what it is. I mean, I can see where people say it's rushed, but again, I can see your side that is the ending. I think people, if you would compare it to a movie made today, like you said, you'd have this overblown CGI wolf jumping around, which we still might get because there's always been talks of a remake, which John Landis' son, who's a complete. Sorry, but my opinion on John Landis' son is not good. Was it Max Landis? Who just walked around Halle, like, I'm famous.
And he tried to redo it, didn't he? Like,
he basically was going to do it, and then he was pulled up on sexual harassment. He's been done for, or kind of involved in something that's been said, and therefore it's all been closed down now, so there's no more to do with it. John Landis, I told more on a while back, famously said, like, 'cause he rang his dad up and said, have you got any advice for me when I make this movie? And he just said, good luck. And put the phone down on him, like, it's your problem, not mine now.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that this isn't happening now, because I really don't want
it needs to be left alone. It is the daddy.
Yeah.
You don't. If he's going to do a werewolf film, he needs to try and come up with his own idea.
Yeah, no, completely. But I think that just sums that Max Landis up, though. It's just like, cruise on my dad's coattails. Anyway, so it looks like it's not happening, which is a great thing, because I don't see how you can improve on perfection. But yeah, if you were doing that film today, if he was to do that movie, I think the wolf would be jumping around Piccadilly, probably be breakdancing on top of a red and white double-decker bus. Probably on his mobile phone.
It'd be like how they are in those pointless movies, Underworld.
Yeah. No one likes those horrible, grey-looking CGI things. Yeah, horrible. Yeah. And also, it wouldn't be such of a rushed ending, because I think sometimes people think when they comment on the rushed ending of American Werewolf in London, I think they're like, oh, I'd just like to see one more scene with Jenny Agutter, or just something a little bit to bring it, to a close, which I can imagine them filming that stuff now. But like, sometimes there's just no need for it, because it's like, what's the point?
You've seen the state of her just before, her facial expressions said it all when it all happened.
Yeah.
And that's all you needed. You didn't, it could have took it, dragged on with her.
I know, exactly. That's good enough for me. Just, the machine gun in, blue moon, done. Right, let's get out of the movie. Perfect ending. What's wrong with that? A couple of little things just to talk about before we kind of suppose get to the... I don't know, I guess we're coming to the end of this now. A couple of things I'd like to mention. It was apparently, but I don't know if this is a rumour or not, when John Landis first got the go-ahead to make this movie and was given the budget, then he was like, we're going to use this story that I wrote when I was 19. Jack and David, I don't know, true, this would have been awful, but Jack and David, because he was known for the Blues Brothers and Animal House, he was going to cast John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd as Jack and David.
No. Really?
Apparently that's the rumour. That was the original Jack and David.
That wouldn't have been good at all.
No.
No. That would have been so wrong.
I know. I always, every time I think of that now, I try to think, which one would have been Jack and which would have been David?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I hope to God that was absolute rumour. I hope. Or
John Belushi would definitely be Jack.
You reckon?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, probably. But then Dan Aykroyd doing a love scene in the shower and stuff. No, let's leave that there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No thanks.
So, yeah, that was a rumour.
And naked. And naked throughout the whole movie. A naked American man stole his balloon. Could you imagine?
I know, yeah. Can you imagine that line with Dan Aykroyd covering his bits and pieces?
Yeah, no.
He probably still woke up in the zoo with his pair of shades on.
His pork pie hat. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that would have been...
And that's coming from big Blues Brothers fans too.
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, that's pretty much nearly everything we've talked about with American Werewolf in London, I'm pretty sure. Just before we kind of, as I know we're going into the last sort of 10 minutes now, I just want to talk about maybe favourite scene from American Werewolf in London, starting with you, Marlon. Do you have a favourite scene? Although they're all good, but...
No, beginning sequence.
On the moors.
Yeah, on the moors. From when they arrive...
Yeah, dropped off.
Yeah, to when he wakes up in the hospital, I think that
whole yeah. Which is like about the first 15 minutes, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty peerless, really good. And of course you got all the jokes in the pub as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
About remember the Alamo and yeah, all that, which is fantastic. Which we still quote all the time, yeah. We still do all those jokes, don't we?
What's that star on the wall?
Yeah, but you made me miss that board. Yeah, which is
and
just...
then they chucked out the Mexicans.
Yeah, and that gets a big laugh. The one with, the Alamo. Yeah, I saw it in Leicester Square, and it's the one with John Wayne and Lawrence Harvey. It's very bloody. It's bloody awful. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that. It's fantastic. Very observant. John Landis writing a Yorkshire man. What about yourself, Hope?
I just like all the jokes in it. I don't think I have a specific bit that I like. Maybe when he's running naked when he wakes up naked in the den. Yeah, in the zoo.
Yeah.
And he's running through the park and steals the little kids' balloons.
Yeah,
I think.
Do you think that appeals to your smutty juvenile sense of humour?
Probably. And then he grabs the lady's coat when running by, and then he's stuck on a bus or on the train with the red coat with the fur.
Lady's coat on. Yeah,
it's good because it brings a whole load of violence into humour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like fairly softens the blow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking for myself, the scene I would pick is the scene at the Tottenham Court platform where the guys, Gerald then is
scary.
Is stalked by basically by a point of view shot from a camera by the wharf alone at night in the tubeway, and he ends up kind of falling onto the escalator, and then you get a kind of crane shot from above, and you just catch just a glimpse of the wharf, and it's so well done. 'Cause it kind of slowly comes into the top of the frame, and it works.
It's a real well-made scene. That is.
Yeah.
Completely.
And that's Subway little. For American people, by the way.
Okay.
Subway. We don't know Two-Way except Two-Way Army, which I guess he would be called Subway Army if Gary Newman
formed his band.
If he was from America.
Okay, and the Jam single would be Down in the Subway at night. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, because didn't you say that where was the Moors filmed? Like in Yorkshire?
Not in Yorkshire, and not in Leicestershire or Gloucestershire. No, it wasn't in Yorkshire. It was actually filmed in a place called Crickedarn, which is a tiny cul-de-sac then in Wales, which I have visited a few times because of my love for the movie. It's great. As soon as you go there, you recognise where you are straight away, and it's a really cool place to go if anyone ever gets the chance down in Wales.
Because how did they get to London? Like, is it the Moors? Was it above London where it was filmed? Like, how did he get to London?
How do you mean?
Wasn't he in London? In the hospital, in the whole subway,
the
subway and all that was London, right?
In terms of the story,
yeah,
because American Werewolf in Wales wouldn't sound as good, would it?
No,
and we'd have to probably explain that one. But no, in terms of the story, David and Jack are attacked in Yorkshire,
which is above London. Is that right?
Which is just above the Midlands in England.
And the hospital he got took to
is in London.
In London,
and then the rest of the film.
So that was probably like the closest hospital type thing.
Well, probably not, but in terms of the story, it works. So the rest of the movie is in. See,
I'm
London.
always factual. Like, how does it? From
you want to know the
A
geography?
to B? Yeah.
You want to know the geography?
Yeah, I
do. There is no such place, by the way, as Yorkshire.
Yeah. Yorkshire. Oh, there is no Yorkshire?
No, there's Yorkshire. Okay, well, that brings us pretty much...
subways.
Yeah.
Not two ways. Subways.
In the tube. So, that brings this one pretty much to an end. Coming from definitely two big American Werewolf lovers here, and one sitting on the fence American Werewolf lover. She's a fan, I know.
I love it.
Say one word to all our followers. Beware the moon.
That just leaves me to say a big thank you to our first ever guest on Sound Division podcast,
Yay.
Marlon.
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure doing this one with you, and
hopefully do some more.
Yeah, definitely come back for some more.
Cool. So thank you, Marlon, again. And for myself, that's it for this week. So this is Ian James saying goodbye.
And this is Hope saying goodbye.
Goodbye.